We have some breaking Cincinnati Bengals news here. Joe Burrow has officially been cleared to come back to practice. Going to be coming back today on Monday to start that 21-day practice availability window. And the expectation now is that he is going to be back for that Thursday night Thanksgiving game against the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is, way sooner than a lot of people expected Joe Burrow to be back for the Bengals, obviously suffering that turf toe injury in week 2 this year. This is big time news for the Cincinnati Bengals as Joe Burrow has now been cleared to come back to practice. This absolutely hypes me up. And if that hypes you up as well, make sure you guys get down there and hype up today's video. If you're watching on your phone right now, get to where the comment section is, kind of scroll right. There's a hype button. If this news that Joe Burrow is going to be back for the Cincinnati Bengals sooner than a lot of us expected, make sure you get down there and hype today's video. What's going on, Bengals fans? Chris Daughtery here with you guys here on Bengals Breakdown. And some massive news, a lot of news actually has happened so far this morning for the Bengals. So we're going to get all into that. There's been some roster moves that have happened for the Bengals today. So we're going to get into that as well, including some trade rumors that, obviously it's after the trade deadline. But man, there was some crazy trade proposals that were thrown out there for Trey Hendrickson. So going to talk about all that here on today's show. First up, though, the massive breaking news of the day. Joe Burrow has been cleared to return to practice. He's expected to come back in a limited fashion today, that being on Monday, and that gives him 21 days now for that practice window, and he does not count to that 53-man roster, which is really big for the Bengals right now. For the next couple of weeks, obviously, he's not going to end up playing, so they do have to fill that roster spot there. Once the 21-day window is over, by the way, he has to return to the active roster or he's going to be reverted back to IR. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, though, here for the Bengals. And man, when Joe Burrow is out there, he is a top 2 quarterback in the National Football League. Definitely, I think a lot of people, are in favor of he's got screwed a couple of times being in that, MVP conversation. Had damn near 50 touchdowns last year and only had 9 interceptions. I think he definitely should have won it. But when you don't make the playoffs, that's just kind of how it is right there. But unfortunately, had that turf toe injury in week 2 versus the Jags. And, it was a struggle the first 2 games for Joe Burrow to really get anything cooking. Obviously he was taking care of the football and stuff like that, but the completion percentage really wasn't there. He was kind of running for his life a lot. I know there's been this conversation about, he needs to get rid of the ball quicker. You see Joe Flacco, what he's done. He's getting rid of the ball really, really quickly. He's making really good decisions as well. And those 2 interceptions came in this last game as well for Joe Flacco. So, this is massive news for the Bengals to be able to get Joe Flacco back. And we talked about the fact that, it might be mid-December before they end up getting him back. And, the good thing here is Jay Glazer actually tweeting this out just right before we started filming this video here, saying last week Joe Burrow told me that he is returning way sooner than he was expected and gave me the timeline by Thanksgiving. That's going to be that Thursday night game versus the Baltimore Ravens. We were expected it to be, more like mid-December, around the last 3 games of the year when he was expected to come back. But he's going to come back to practice now in a limited basis. He said also he's been attacking the rehab, just absolutely, going insane on that front there. The last part there I think is notable as well, saying at first medical people didn't believe he'd be back before the playoffs. This is just insanely really good news for this Bengals team. And, I think too, another element of it, I know Joe Flacco has come in and he's played really well too, but, just having your guy, Joe Burrow is the dude right now for the Cincinnati Bengals at that quarterback position. I've seen some people out there throwing out these conversations, these ideas that, the Bengals should trade Joe Burrow for, a bunch of first-round picks here in the, coming years, whatever it is, because of the injury issues that he's had. I think that's absolutely crazy. I think 9 is the guy that you need at that quarterback position, and we're going to get him back, probably the goal right now for that Week 13 game versus the Baltimore Ravens. So if you guys are excited for Joe Burrow to return to the Cincinnati Bengals lineup here in the next couple of weeks, 21 days seems like it's what it's going to be. Get down at the pinned comment and spam your 9s down in the comment section at the pinned comment of today's video. All right, coming up, the other things that we were going to talk about before all this, breaking Joe Burrow news came out today. There was some trade buzz that came out the other day after the NFL trade deadline. Ian Rappaport reported that there was a trade offer for Trey Hendrickson at the NFL trade deadline on Tuesday. And I got to be honest, I honestly think it's just very, very insulting what, the Bengals were offered for Trey Hendrickson. And honestly, it's kind of a waste of time that the phone call was even made. This is the report here from Ian Rappaport about the Trey Hendrickson, trade offer here. Saying sources say that no offer was better than a 4th-round pick for the 2024 SAC champion. Do what's left on his $16 million base salary. The Cincinnati Bengals have already paid $13 million in a second rounder was required to make a trade possible. It doesn't sound like the Bengals got close to that. One contributing factor, might have been his health with Hendrickson, missing some time recently for that hip injury. Teams could not have given him a physical before agreeing to terms, making it more complicated there. So, it really does suck, and I'm going to get to my opinion here in just a second, but I want to hear from you guys again, because I think this is very notable that, other teams are worried about Trey Hendrickson's injury. Are you worried about Trey Hendrickson's injury? Do you think it's going to be a multi-week thing here? Obviously, he had the bye week to recoup and get a little bit more healthy there, but let me know what you guys think. Type Y for yes or N for no. Getting a 4th-round pick, being offered a 4th-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, to me, is absolutely asinine. And look, I got to apologize too. I was on Team Rebuild. I'm still on Team Rebuild, but, this is where we're at right now. You guys know that by now. I want to credit the Bengals for coming off of that 1st-round asking price. And according to the report there from Ian Rappaport, they were willing to take a second for Trey Hendrickson. But the fact that you got teams out here calling and, offering a 4th for a guy who has led the NFL in sacks in 2023 and 2024, I think that's absolutely crazy. And, I probably would have been more mad if all the Bengals got was a 4th-round pick for Trey Hendrickson than, I was that, they didn't trade him at the end of the day. And I'm only, because I'm on Team Rebuild here, I wanted you to at least get a 2nd-round pick for him. That's what the Bengals ended up, wanting for Trey Hendrickson. I think it is absolutely crazy. I think it's a joke that teams were only offering a 4th for him. They cited health being a concern. I guess that's kind of fair, but, for a guy who's led the NFL in sacks for the past 2 years, a 4th-round pick, downright insulting. All right, we'll continue with some more breaking Bengals news here in just a second. They've made a bunch of roster moves, but first, we want to push this really good deal right now. If you guys need a new or just your first Jamar Chase jersey, it is on sale today. Don't know how long these deals last. Usually it's only a 24-hour window. Use promo code TURF. Go to chatsports.com/Chase sale. It is $40 off right now. Originally $130. You can get it right now for only $90. Use promo code TURF to get that today. Chatsports.com/Chase sale. I'll put that link down in the comment section and the description of today's show. But if you guys need a Jamar Chase jersey, really, really good deal going on right now at Fanatics. Just use promo code TURF on sale right now for only $40. All right, so we've talked about the fact that, there's been a bunch of breaking news today. I scripted an original video and then, some more breaking news when it comes to what we're about to talk about now, came out for the Bengals, some roster moves that they made, and then the Joe Burrow stuff happened. So we've had to change this video about 4 times here now, but coming back to the original point here, the Bengals pass rush has been a massive issue so far this year, with Trey Hendrickson missing a couple of games, other guys as well, Joseph Osai, Miles Murphy, those guys have been extremely inconsistent. You had Jamar Stewart, the guy that you used a first-round pick on, he missed about a month with that injury as well, and even when he's been in there, he's kind of been a non-factor in there. You also have, Cam Sample and Cedric Johnson as well. See if those guys can help you out at all, in terms of that. But, the pass rush has been a massive issue, and it seems like the Bengals are trying to make some stuff happen when it comes to that spot. They did sign Antoine Powell-Ryland Jr. to their practice squad today. Now, he has been a practice squad member for the Philadelphia Eagles here off and on, kind of, got cut at roster cutdown time. Then they brought him back on the practice squad. Then they cut him again. Then they brought him back again. Now they cut him again. Now he is on the Bengals practice squad here. And, this might be a little bit out of pocket to say, but, if the Eagles are drafting somebody in the 6th round, look, it might not be the worst thing in the world to go after those same players because, when Howie Roseman, obviously, he can build a really, really good team. And, just because he gets cut from the Eagles does not necessarily mean he is not a good player here. You can look, he actually played 5 years in college, but the last 4 years here, he was really, really good. In the last 2 years for Virginia Tech, 19 TFLs in 2024, 16 sacks, a ton of pressures for this guy. There are some concerns that he might be a little bit small. Maybe, being on that practice squad, they might be able to, bulk him up, with the training staff here just a little bit, to help out in the run game. But Dane Brugler was pretty high on him as well coming out of the NFL draft, saying despite below average length and get off burst, Powell-Ryland was a difficult player to block on tape because of his ability to mix up his rush attack and detach from blockers, including his signature spin move. He can get pushed around as a run defender when setting an edge, and he might not be ready for early down snaps in the NFL until he improves his upper and lower body strength. Overall, Powell-Ryland posted eye-popping pass rush production with active hands to slip blocks, but he doesn't offer ideal traits by NFL standards and is inconsistent in the run game reps. Leaves his NFL role in question. He projects as a potential nickel rusher, and Dane Brugler talked about his athletic traits there. He actually graded out pretty well on the relative athletic score here. Had a 9.1 out of 10. That's really, really good. Had for an edge rusher, had a pretty solid 40-yard dash there, and also had some really, really good athletic traits there. So he's been on the Eagles practice squad a couple of times now this season. Hasn't had any game experience so far. Maybe you could have him as a special teamer possibly for you, especially with that speed there. But like I said, poaching guys that the Bengals drafted, probably not the worst idea in the world here. And that is not the only roster move that the Bengals ended up making today. Ian Rappaport tweeting this out as well. They signed Brian Asamoah from their practice squad to the active roster. And there you go right there as well. Added Antoine Powell-Ryland to the practice squad. When it comes to Brian Asamoah, there were some people kind of comparing him to that Joe Flacco trade that happened. He came in, that being Joe Flacco came in, and then, the very, couple of days later, you end up, starting at quarterback for the Bengals. Well, Asamoah actually kind of did the exact same thing, obviously not to the extent as Joe Flacco did, but, they signed him, early in the week, and then they ended up he ended up playing in the game this past week, or not this past weekend, the weekend before there. Just a couple of days after they ended up signing him, they played him, on special teams there. So he's been a really big special teams, addition for the Bengals here, and I think he's probably going to be that same, special teams player for the Bengals here moving forward. I don't necessarily see him getting, those snaps on the defensive side of the ball, but you never know. If he can help this Bengals team, we'll see if they end up, putting him out there on defense as well. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to Bengals Breakdown. We've got a ton of breaking news for you guys, and when that breaking news comes down, we have got you covered. So do not miss out. Hit that sub button and stay up to date on all things Bengals news.